Hi, I'm Ruth from pebblecollections.com. Tired of hearing from your spouse that you're sick with mental illness? There may be things beneath this claim you might not see. In this Pebble, my primary focus is speaking to a potential sufferer of anxiety depression, what I call the grey-black dog. I will also be sharing with the husband as my audience. Please exchange the terms him or her as required. Allow me to respond to my introduction. To what benefit would it be for her to bang on about the same illness or disorders, potentially for years, if what she was claiming was a lie? I know as a woman she would have better things to do with her time than to keep frustrating herself and annoying you over it. Even if her story changes as she hunts for answers or what you may view as mental labels to stick on your forehead like a bright post-it note, what would be the point? There must be an instigator. Something about you, or there's evidence of something present in you that is affecting your relationship to provoke her into action. Why would she bother asking questions or doing any research? If her actions are love-based, there is no practical, emotional or relational benefit for her, for you or your marriage. Is she pointing out the same thing, especially over multiple years, that you flatly deny exists in you? Or do you find yourself saying something like, maybe before but not anymore, and she's still at you? The dictionary places mental illness as a noun, a condition which causes serious disorder or dysfunction in a person's behaviour or thinking. That's it. It doesn't say untreatable condition or you're less of a person, shameful or weak with mental illness. One of the initial casualties of anxiety is one's ability to trust. Trust your spouse, like what she says, what anyone says, like their motives, circumstances or certain environments. Anxiety isn't just a feeling of nervousness and the associated physical symptoms, but a tangible, treatable imbalance of chemicals in the brain that regulate their feelings and physical reactions. Anxiety is a condition that actually alters cognitive functions like your perspective, judgments, thoughts, emotions, behaviours, even personality, can influence your belief systems, your ability to trust, and your long-term memory. Regarding anxiety and depression, there are areas in the brain, some commonly shared, that are being impaired or prohibited from functioning as they should, and this can be treated and or managed. Mental health struggles are a broad and complex subject and therefore difficult to condense now. And naturally, I don't know or understand everything. However, I do desire to share with you what I do know of mental health struggles that can slowly dissolve your relationship. There will be some examples I cover that may not be relevant to your exact situation. Some may have already occurred and others I explain may not even eventuate. Perhaps by now you're feeling this pebble doesn't really relate to you. Stick with me a little longer and allow me to explain some signs that may indicate your marriage is bleeding, so that you know what to watch out for and consider potential outcomes of your choices you may not have thought of. There's a part of everyone's brain that acts like a smoke alarm, and we all need one. It's our defense system that protects our bodies. The condition of anxiety, however, causes the alarm unit to malfunction. For example, it can think the house is on fire when really it's only burnt toast. One way of how this plays out in your marriage are within your perceptions, actions and reactions of and towards your spouse, given that she is closest to you. I'm confident that you'll be able to list some mountain-sized hurts from your wife. So pick one that has possibly become a major unforgivable stumbling block or has potentially caused an unbridgeable chasm between you. Take a moment to dissect the event. What if you stripped away the hurt to just leave the act itself? If your wife loves you and does her mortal best not to hurt you, were her actions innocent and the hurt unintentional? Was it a house fire or just innocent, maybe thoughtless, unintended, burnt toast? If it was just toast, why then the emotional meltdown, as if your house was burnt to the ground? When one suffers from anxiety depression, particularly during the heavier episodes, you cannot view yourself or your spouse realistically. Why? Because anxiety or depression chemically skews the emotions and the thoughts, making everything seem worse than what they really are, and can magnify insignificant issues to an unbearable level. I'm not trying to diminish or cancel out the pain you felt from the event. My intention here is to help you separate the hurt from the act so that you can personally ascertain whether the pain would have been the same or as intense if anxiety depression wasn't involved, leaving the act itself relatively insignificant to the broader scheme of life, like burnt toast. That's just one bleed on your part, or is there more to it? From your spouse's perspective, potentially surprised by your reaction ends up like an innocent bystander, as collateral damage from emotional-based explosion, wounded from the emotional shrapnel flying out of you. Are you interested in knowing what form that shrapnel took? Then ask her. So now one person being hurt by that event suddenly changes from one bleed to two. But it doesn't stop at two bleeds. Take your list of hurts if you can remember them. Compound the bleeds by all the others. Add the effects of possible unforgiveness, and your spouse, from your perspective, can end up as devil woman, intentionally bent on hurting you. If this is left unchecked by you, not her, the flow-on effect can be seamless and continue potentially unnoticed by you, as your thoughts of and attitudes towards her slowly change to the negative. The outworkings of that is you could be treating her accordingly. Unless this distorted perception of reality is dealt with, you cannot begin to interact with your spouse in a healthy way. Without anxiety depression being addressed and treated, it is almost impossible for both of you to learn and to practice the relational skills needed to help your marriage stay strong. So what if you can't see any attitudes or instances of disrespect towards your spouse? Is it then logical for you to argue that her claims of hurt are lies? There's nothing wrong with you, and the fault falls in her court. She's the one been causing all the hurts in the first place, right? Probably at this point you've heard all her blabbings before, so there's no point in even listening anymore. You can't see her claims in yourself, so you don't believe her, and therefore your trust in her is shot to pieces. Because from your perspective, all her hurts prove to you that she doesn't care. Earlier, I stated that anxiety depression alters your perceptions, judgments, and thoughts. An example of this is during an intense, stressful situation. Your mind can disassociate or isolate itself from that moment to cope, manage, or protect. Another way to explain it is like the mind withdraws into a protective bubble, as the defense system is activated because it perceives danger or an imminent threat. It's a symptom of anxiety, particularly that of post-traumatic stress disorder. The result of that episode after a varied period of time is either you wouldn't remember the moment at all, or the details will be distorted or patchy. So for example, you could be in a foul mood, said things, done things, behaved in an uncharacteristic way, and you could be none the wiser, or your memory of it is twisted somehow. But your spouse is left very much aware. The potential outcome of these occurrences, if something negative did happen, is it is highly likely you wouldn't believe her. Any constructive actions by you would then be minimal, and the bleeding that is hidden will increase. What if you can't remember her warnings, descriptions of what's going on, or her explanations of those hurts towards you? Your problems, failings, and shortcomings have probably been thrown at your face countless times that you don't even care whether you remember her words or not. Has your memory ability always been good, where you can remember specific details of the past circumstances? Or has your memory ability been generally bad? Or if it has only been bad since around the beginning of your wife's nagging? If you cannot remember, may I suggest this is not necessarily proof that her claims haven't happened, or those issues she describes are not present in you. Those smoke alarms I spoke of earlier regarding anxiety, they directly influence the brain's judgment, and they also regulate the area that converts short-term memory into long-term. So poor memory retention is heightened by anxiety. Anxiety depression can also play out in a sufferer's life in cycles. One sign of the cycle effect being present are the words akin to, yeah, maybe before, but no, not anymore. And that statement is said more than once over an extended period. The longer your struggles are left undealt with by you, during a major mental health event, your symptomatic self or each crash can be worse than the predecessor. Worse in ways like the things you do, your moods, things you say, and ultimately how you perceive and treat your spouse. In between the cycles, she'll get glimpses of the real you and less of the symptomatic you. However, the shadow of the grey-black dog will remain, ready to rise, untamed and uncontrolled, to potentially take over again. For your spouse, it will be like she's not living, but merely existing on painful, tender hooks every day from one cycle to the next. Regarding PTSD, one explosion to the next, or from one depressive crash to the next, or regarding adult autism, one withdrawal to the next, or all of the above. She is under constant stress, waiting for your cycle to turn back around again. This combination makes up a highly complex, toxic relationship environment and a very tiring, unhealthy, stressful marriage, as both of you are simultaneously stressed or bleeding, but in different ways to each other. If past painful events between you have occurred, I know that you are hurting from them. Maybe you're struggling with emotions you don't understand or not even consciously aware of. There's a perspective on her side that she may be reluctant to say because she doesn't wish to undermine or invalidate you. But I can say it for her. She is hurting longer than you. No, it's not a competition. What I mean by longer is this. While anxiety and depression is left undealt with, your cycles may dissipate, and there will be times when you appear or feel fine, like it's all over. But the stress, the worry, the hurt, the pain doesn't necessarily stop between cycles for her. Why? Because it's extremely common that anxiety depression sufferers are not aware of the conditions they have or their effects. Therefore, the condition continues to be left untreated. But your spouse is very much aware, all the time. Has she tried to explain, don't you know, ... And you respond, no, but I know me better than you. Which will leave her shattered and exasperated to the core, because if the things I've explained are present, then what you know to be true about yourself will not necessarily match reality. Given from what I've explained thus far, your reality may not be actual reality. As I mentioned before at the beginning, anxiety and depression can alter your personality because a smoke alarm is directly connected to that part of the brain. Through all the above, during a major event, you can turn or have turned into someone she barely recognises. Changed, usually not for the better. And for her, I can understand it to be like she's lost her soulmate, where the heart would be saying that it's just another tear I cry, and it's just another string that broke. I've been trying hard to make it work, and you tell me how it seems to hurt. Can someone tell me how you love a ghost? With personality changes, that's who you'd be like. A ghost, a mere shell of your former self through the severe episodes, ready to crack at the slightest trigger. There is one massive sign short of divorce that your marriage is bleeding. One that classifies the marital status as critical. If an intervention order is mentioned, please take notice, as there's something very dire going on that needs urgent attention. This cry is not necessarily a rejection, a sign of unlove or cause for divorce. Wouldn't she say if they were so? If it has reached that point, possibly after many years of struggle, your marriage is hemorrhaging and the life of your marriage is draining out. It's a desperate cry from her that screams, I still want to make this work. Stop hurting me. Stop hurting us, hurting your family. It's a decision has been made and actioned from a woman's perspective. This would not have been made lightly. Not only that it would have hurt to do so, but if an application is made on false grounds, the truth will out, because she must swear in front of a judge that her claims are true and correct. If you feel through it all that it means you need someone new, that it must be easier and greener on the other side of the fence with someone else, be warned. You will take the issues or conditions with you to the next relationship where the cycles of hurt could potentially continue. Is it worth it to go through the same pain? To pave the way to a happy relationship, the person who's responsible for stopping the cycles and history from repeating itself is not the responsibility of anybody else but yours. Can't you see? See what? Didn't you hear? Can't remember. Don't you know? I know me. Then who are you? The grey-black dog. Listen, believe, trust those who care. If at this point you haven't sought professional help or you haven't fully engaged with them, thinking that you're not the problem, that there's nothing wrong with you, but it's your spouse, your job, your boss, your environment, or all the above are the problem, please find merit in this pebble and discuss these concepts with a professional who can help you personally work out the truth of what the underlying issue is. They're there because they care and help you discern and better understand the characteristics or traits of your wife that trigger you so much and why. They can help you decipher what is reality and what is just burnt toast. Because if your perception of your spouse is a negative one and you allow this to remain the same, so shall your attitude towards her remain the same. Before it's too late, actively seek the answers from those who are trained to help. Seeking is a deeper engagement than just answering their questions, and therefore you will open the door to allow hope to return to your relationship. Is your marriage worth the risk? Is your long-time spouse worth the risk? Are your children, if any, of whom your cycles are impacting them more than what you think, worth the risk? Isn't facing your fears to prevent them from controlling you worth the risk? And what of your own mental health and well-being? Aren't they worth the risk? What is that risk I'm talking about? The risk of change. Thank you for passing on this pebble to provide the chance for hope to touch a bleeding marriage. Until next time, onwards and upwards.